Morning, Trainiacs. We have a shorter swim here, but I'm not going to feel quite so confident just yet. Even though it's like a main swim that's just 3,600 meters, the last couple weeks I've been caught thinking, oh, it's just 3,600 meters. Well, it ends up being a brutal 3,600 meters. That takes a long time. So we'll see. Through our pal Christoph over at obsstri.com, we have access to the results data from literally every single Ironman and half Ironman race for the past 5 years. And we're working on a fun data project, literally like right now, trading some messages to figure out where the most competitive triathletes in swim, bike, run, and overall come from in the world. Neither of us have an idea of where it's going to come from. I'm rooting for Canada. All in all, not too bad at all. About 3,600 yards in, I think, an hour 15. I feel like I cheated somehow, but I like it. All right, let's dive into some digits. I love me some digits. Okay, come on, guys. Okay, Trainiacs, we have some extremely fun stats that we've been pulling from Ironman results that are going to give us an indication of where the best triathletes in the world are coming from, in addition to all kinds of other projects that we're working on. So our buddy Christoph, who runs obsstri.com, obsessedtriathlete.com, obsstri.com, how he runs a lot of the data and features that are on that site are he pulls all of the results from the Ironman races in full Ironman and half Ironman races. And I think he's done that for the past 5 years. So we're talking like, I would guess somewhere around about 1 million actual results that he's got in a database. And I started thinking to myself, hey, you know what? I wonder what sort of stats we can pull from this and like basically Moneyball how to train for triathlon. So I started thinking, all right, where do the best cyclists come from? The best runners, the best overall athletes? Are the best athletes swimmers, or are they cyclists, or are they runners? And we start pulling out all of this data, hashing it up, and I thought, for starters, why don't we see where the best athletes in the world are coming from? And we got some answers. So what Christoph and I started looking at is how many triathletes as a percentage of the whole are from each country. Now, I'm sure a bunch of data scientists out there are going to poke holes in this, and we know it's not 100% accurate, but at least it points us in some sort of a direction. But here's what Christoph and I did. Well, basically more what Christoph did, and I came up with the idea. So you can blame me for the idea, and Christoph did the work. Give him the credit. What I figured we could look at is, as a whole, all Ironman finish times that we have access to, what is the percentage of representation from each country? What's the percentage that comes from the US, from Canada, from France, from Switzerland, from New Zealand, from Australia? What is the percentage? From that, we would have sort of a rough idea of, if we took a look at all Ironman and half Ironman finish times as well, what the percentage would approximately be if it just represented the average in the top 15%, the top 2 standard deviations. So what we can look at is, all right, here are the averages of how many people are in events, how many people in the top 15% come from each country. Let's just use Canada as an example. Let's say that of all Ironman branded race finish times, 10% of those finish times come from Canada. If everyone is just performing on average, we would expect in the top 15% of athletes that 10% of those top 15 would come from Canada. But let's say 15% of that top 15 come from Canada. Canada is then performing over average better at that top level. On the other hand, if there are only 5% of that top 15% that are from Canada, then Canada is performing less than average better, less than we would expect per capita. And what we've also done is to try to eliminate outliers, like let's say Zimbabwe has 0.5% of all the finish times out there, but it has 0.8% of the top 15%. Such a small sample size that it can kind of skew the data because just a very small little group of competitive athletes can perform over average better. So what we did was we looked at the top 10 countries total, the 10 countries that had the most athletes in Kona for 2018, and those 10 countries alone represent 70% of the overall Kona competitors. So what we're looking at is which countries of the most 10 common countries that are out there that have enough data to pull from, which ones perform better on average. That's what we're gonna show you. You're gonna have to cut up a lot there, Mel. So those top 10 countries were the United States, Germany, Australia, UK, Canada, France, Japan, Belgium, Switzerland, and Brazil. Those were the countries that were the most common as far as how many athletes appeared in Kona. So those are the 10 countries that we're going to look at for where the most competitive athletes come from. And here's the ranking. Number 1 most competitive country, can you guess? Can you guess? Pause and put your guess of what the most competitive country is in the comment section below. I'll wait. Of those top 10 countries, the most competitive to least competitive. First most competitive, Switzerland, way overperforming, basically double the amount of athletes in the top 15% than you would expect. Next, Brazil. Next, Australia. Next, Germany. Next, France. Canada is the last country of those top 10 that performs just slightly better than we would expect, just 8.5% better. And then the countries that underperform based on what we would expect are Great Britain, just slightly underperforming on average. USA performing significantly worse on average, about 1/3 worse than we would expect. And the country that performs the worst representationally is Japan, performing about half what we would expect in the top 15%. So what can you actually do with this data? How does this help you? Well, you can actually go and potentially start cherry picking some of the races that are from less competitive countries, and then avoiding some of the countries that have over competitive. So on average, we would expect races in Germany, races in Australia, races in Switzerland to all be very competitive, races in Japan, the United States to be a little bit less competitive. How do you go and pick those races and seeing which ones are harder races or easier races? Well, here you can go to our buddy's website at obsstri.com. And what Christoph has done here that you can do is, let's say Japan. You can go to races and start typing in Japan, and all of a sudden it gives you a race that's in Japan, when it is, and the difficulty levels of it. You can also then start going into that race and seeing just how competitive your age group is. If you want to start cherry picking your way to try to get to Ironman Kona or the Half Ironman World Championships, you can do that. So you can look at Switzerland and saying, well, maybe I should avoid that. And actually, fun fact about that, I've got a buddy who goes to Switzerland to see his girlfriend quite a bit, who lives there, and he says people are obsessed about fitness there. Magically, they perform really well in Ironmans. So that's what you can do with all this data. You can start pulling out maybe where you do and don't want to race if you start trying to get really competitive. And frankly, it's just fun. So what I will do is in the description below, I will have the listing from best performing country to worst performing country of the ones that we analyzed. And what I'll do is the X's on all of those countries, those are the top 10 most populated with triathletes countries, as far as just using the most common countries that were in Ironman Kona. So there you go, Trainiacs. That is some of the fun stuff that we're diving into. If you like being a data junkie and starting to understand like the mechanics and the nuances of all of this stuff that is verified from literally hundreds of thousands of Ironman finish times, make sure you're subscribed. I am so into this, and we've got probably about a dozen little data science projects that we're trying to pull out so we can start tailoring our training and race selection and travel plans and all of this stuff around actual fact so that we can perform better. So hit that subscribe button below. Later, Trainiacs.